This is the Biz News Podcast, one-on-one conversations with experts in business and personal development.
Like thousands upon thousands of Californians, Angela Fowler loves to cook the beef known as tri-tip on her backyard barbecue. She says she loves getting out there barbecuing and adds, people don't realize that a blind person can do that. Ms. Fowler is a blind accessibility consultant who says that an accessible business is a prosperous business. Her Yuba City-based company, Real Life Access, uses that as its motto. Angela Fowler is our guest on this episode of Bizgnus Interviews. Angela, it's tough enough for anybody to start a business and grow it. How have you managed to do it? Because you have a remarkable disadvantage over a lot of people, I would think.
It's not a disadvantage. I mean, there's definitely annoying parts to it. Sometimes I'll try to fill out a form and the form isn't coded so that my screen reader understands it. Visual presentation is something that I've sometimes needed to outsource because obviously if you can't see, you don't know how your website looks, so you just have to have somebody else look at it and adjust it visually. But, these are things that you adapt to. These are things that you adjust to. So is it a disadvantage? Not if you do what you need to do to compensate for it.
How did you get your business started, and what did you have to overcome to get to the point where you are today?
The main thing that I had to overcome really was my own self-doubt and my own, honestly, lack of true belief in what I just got done saying. I think a lot of people with disabilities sort of grow up with a victim mindset because society doesn't understand disability. Society sees disability as a disadvantage, and that's what we're told growing up. So that's the mindset that we adopt. And I really had to overcome that mindset and say, no, I'm the hero in my own story. My business is going to succeed if I work my butt off, if I do what I need to do. And if I screw up, I learn from it and keep going. But
what was the toughest thing you had to overcome, though? Dealing with all the bureaucratic nonsense to get a business
good
off the
Lord,
ground?
yes. That's harder than blindness. Bureaucracy is 100 times harder than blindness. Blindness I can deal with. I know how to deal with blindness, but yeah, dealing with the government and the Department of Licensing Bureau of headache generating, and it's just I have a standard sole proprietorship right now just because I want to deal with as little government as possible.
So no limited partners, no limited corporation, and nothing like that.
No, and no, I'm done with partnerships. I did that in 2022 and it failed spectacularly because we were pulling in different directions. So there's no ship that sinks faster than a partnership, as Dave Ramsey would say.
That brings up a topic that we've discussed over the years with many entrepreneurs, and that is a partnership. When do you know you need one, and when do you know it's time to, as you might put it, abandon ship?
You never need a partnership. I came to the conclusion in 2023 as I was, licking my wounds and drinking too much beer and getting over 2022. I need advisors. I don't need partners. Joint ventures are one thing. If you want to collaborate with another company on a particular project and you got the terms set, that's fine. But in terms of bringing in a partner to share ownership of your business, that invites more drama than you probably need. And it's time to get a business divorce when you spend more time trying to figure out how to deal with the politics of the partnership than you do actually running your business. And that's the point that we got to with our 2022 venture. It was just It was too much. And, of course, some cost fallacy, right? Since we had invested so much time and energy into it, we wanted to keep it going and hope everything turned around. But then it'll eventually get to a breaking point. You gotta go. And business divorces or you know I've done both, right? I had an actual, divorce. It's years and years ago, almost 20 years ago now, and I had a business divorce, and they both suck.
Angela, this is called Bizgnus Interviews because we thought, oh, that's a catchy rhyme. We didn't call it Bizgnus Stories, but that's more like what it is. Tell us the Angela story behind your business.
So I'm a blind person, in case you haven't figured that out. And sometimes being a blind person is frustrating because you run into things that are not designed with the blind in mind. So, for example, a website that requires a mouse that you can't use with a keyboard. A blind person can't use that because we use the keyboard to navigate. If you heard my obnoxious screen reader earlier, I was tabbing through the Zoom controls to make sure that I was off mute and that my video was on and all that happy stuff. And back in the day, that used to just frustrate me, and I would get so angry with the companies for being inaccessible. Um, but I really had a mindset shift, and I had that mindset shift because I took a job in 2021 working with designers and developers who were working on the Department of Veterans Affairs website. And my job was to teach those folks how to make the website accessible. And I realized I'm working with sighted people, sighted designers, sighted developers, sighted project managers, this and that. I was the only blind person in the whole show. Who had varying degrees of knowledge of accessibility, from clueless to, frankly, some of these developers know more about accessibility than I do. Accessible coding, that is. And I realized, regardless of how much they knew about accessibility, most people wanted to do the right thing. The overwhelming majority of people wanted to do the right thing. And even the people who were initially resistant, once they saw the real life benefit of accessibility, oftentimes they would become my strongest allies because they knew once you see it, you can't unsee it. Accessibility isn't something you do because the government says so, even though the government does say so. Um, the government can just go away, and accessibility would still carry tremendous benefit to human beings, to people with disabilities, to people without disabilities who benefit from the same things, and ultimately to the bottom line of the business. So I realized, if these designers and developers, they want to do the right thing. No, there's no discrimination here. Nobody's discriminating against blind people. If things are inaccessible, it's because the developer didn't know how to make it accessible. What of the business community? So in applying the same principles to the business community, I was able to construct the philosophy and the teaching techniques that ultimately became my 2024 venture, which is Real Life Access.
How do you go about getting customers, Angela?
A lot of it is word of mouth. I'm just starting what I call the marketing phase of the business. I've been doing a lot of foundation building, and I still have some foundation building left to do. Um, I'm going to do some work to my website and be a little bit more explicit about exactly what it is I do. I've got some new offers coming out here, but I'm just really just starting the marketing phase of the business, posting to social media, podcast appearances, and word of mouth.
And one of that might be the 30-second elevator pitch as you get on the elevator in a fairly short building.
So the collective buying power of people with disabilities is over $2 trillion, right?
No, didn't know that.
You didn't know that because the government doesn't count seniors. The government will give you a figure somewhere north of 500 billion. I can't remember exactly what it is, but the population of seniors with disabilities is tremendously higher. There's more seniors per capita with disabilities than the 18 to 64 crowd. You wanted an elevator pitch, and I'm rambling.
It's okay. It's a slow elevator, old building.
It is a slow elevator. This elevator, my goodness. I think we're stuck.
That's why I never
Um,
never went into the elevator business. Had too many ups and downs.
came to yeah, this elevator is not going anywhere. So I teach businesses how to use accessibility to tap into that 2 point some trillion-dollar buying market. And as it turns out, when you make your product accessible, you actually make it more user friendly to the general population. So not only are people with disabilities happy, but your customers without disabilities have a much better experience as well.
It sounds like a great idea for a business. Do you have large businesses around the country that say, I'd like to be like that business that might provide lessons or whatever?
Yes, I would love to approach there's two categories of businesses that, and of course, I'll talk to anybody, but there's two categories of businesses that I'd like to focus on. One is the health and wellness, the supplements, the meal plans, things like that. Um, this is a growing industry. You got the Maha movement. You got people getting much more suspicious of processed food. They want to be healthier, and many of these companies have accessibility challenges. Excuse me. Speaking of health, I'm getting over a cold. Um, so I'm starting to sound like Angela the Froggy. But you know, people make bad health choices because it's easy. Why do I grab these cookies that are in my desk? Because they're easy to access. They're literally very accessible.
How did you know where we kept our cookies?
Pardon?
I was wondering how you knew where we kept all of our cookies around this place. I have to find another
How do
hiding
I,
place.
you know, how do I know they're cookies?
Oh, well, then, how
One
do
thing
you know?
I bought them, obviously. A package of cookies feels very distinct. Um, it has the wrapper here, and you can feel through the wrapper the plastic tray that the cookies come in. And obviously the smell, the taste, you can tell these are Oreos, but I mostly know just because I bought them.
Oh, very good. What would you like to? I should ask this. You mentioned you were revising or updating or putting the final touch of sandpaper onto the website. What is the website that our people can go to?
The soon to be updated and revised website is www.reallifeaccess.com.
All is one word, of course.
Yep.
Uh,
Spelled just like it sounds.
Angela, what would you like to tell our listeners and viewers that I have not been bright enough to ask you? It could be anything.
People navigate the world differently. And, blind people, people see blind people as people that are disadvantaged, maybe people that are in need of charity, this and that and that. But the truth is, blind people, people with disabilities in general, I tend to focus on blind people because I am blind, but there's a lot of other considerations that have to do with other disabilities. But we're your customers, we're your neighbors, we're your friends. In my son's case, we're your parents. I'm my mother's daughter, my son's mom, my neighbor's annoying neighbor that barbecues tri-tip on Saturday night and never shares.
Well, now that could become rather annoying.
It's,
We We should mention to our listeners and viewers that you are located in Yuba City, California, where tri-tip is the national meal.
It's a local favorite here. Um, you can't. I couldn't find tri-tip. I took a trip to Texas a couple years ago. I could not find tri-tip.
No, nobody knows where it is outside the Central Valley.
So
And boy, there's a secret worth keeping.
it is. But no, I love getting out there and barbecuing and things like that. People don't realize that a blind person can do that, but it's you use your other senses. You use your other senses to determine you know whether the fire's ready to put to cook, whether the food is done. If you're cooking over indirect heat, you want to make sure that your tri-tip is directly across from the fire instead of angled toward it at one end. You use your sense of feel, you use your sense of smell, and sometimes, not necessarily with tri-tip, but with other if you're cooking over direct heat, you use your sense of hearing. So we have covered everything from real life access to the identification of cookies to barbecuing blind.
There you go. And who said they couldn't get something out of these interviews?
You've been listening to the Bizgnus Podcast. We welcome your input. Send your email to editor@bizgnus.com. That's BIZGNUS.com. Thanks for listening.